Hey friend, welcome back. As we move into this spring season, which is my favorite season, I am being really intentional about building foundations. Just like when you have your garden, especially flower gardens, your foundations are those perennials, those plants that have roots and they come up every year. They're bigger and brighter and bolder. You can share with your friends. They are your foundation in your flower garden. And this is episode 3 in a series of truths that I believe every Christian woman should know, trust, be able to explain, and actually live from, just like in a garden. We want things to take root. We want things to grow deep over time. So even though we have talked about identity before, actually spent 12 episodes talking about our identity, we're going to come back to it on purpose because this is one of those truths that have to move from something that you've heard into something you're actually grounded in, and it takes repetition. So today we're talking about identity, but not in the shallow, cute, churchy way, not in the you are loved, girl, you are loved, where everybody nods their head and then goes right back to their little spiral in their car afterward. I want to talk about identity in the way that actually changes a woman's life, because a lot of women do know Bible verses. A lot of women love God, and a lot of women do mean well. And yet underneath all of that, they are still living from that deep, unspoken, often unexamined place that says things like, I'm not enough. I'm too much. I'm hard to love. I have to hold everything together. If I slow down, everything's going to fall apart. If people really knew me, they wouldn't stay. I know what God says, but that's probably more true for other people than it is for me. And I'd like to believe I'm the only one that has said pretty much all of these on this list, but I know I'm not. I know I'm not alone in this, and that's why we're going to talk about this. If we're being honest, sometimes that stuff isn't very loud. Sometimes it's not dramatic. Sometimes it just sounds like your normal thinking. It sounds like over-explaining, like apologizing for even existing, like constantly scanning the room, like feeling responsible for everybody's mood, like trying to be able to be easy to deal with, like pushing harder, shutting down. Sometimes it sounds like looking strong while quietly feeling lost. And this is why I want to do this episode, because a lot of women are not confused about God in a theological sense. They're confused about themselves in a deeply personal sense. And that confusion affects everything. How they hear God, how they respond to stress, how they show up in relationships, how they take care of their body, how they receive correction, how they handle disappointment, how they hear silence, how they interpret other people's faces, their tones, delays, and withdrawals. So no, identity is not some side topic. It is central. It is foundational. And if your identity is shaky, everything built on top of it is going to be wobbly. That doesn't mean that you're broken. It means your foundation has been mixed with too many other voices. So today, I want to help you do 3 things. I want to help you hear the false story. I want to help you find the truth. And I want to help you begin living from that truth in a very doable, practical way. Does that sound good? Sounds super good to me. I would totally listen to this episode because this isn't just about insight. This is about change. And yes, change is possible, not because you hype yourself up, not because you finally found the perfect planner, not because someone on the internet gives you a pep talk, but because truth actually can reorder your life. And God is not confused about who you are. I think one of the hardest things for women is that we often feel like multiple versions of ourselves. Maybe you thought, I do great for a while and then I fall apart. Sometimes I feel confident and sometimes I feel like I disappear. I know what's true, but I don't live like I believe it. I can encourage everyone else around me, but when it comes to me, I freeze. I do not even know which version of me is the real version. And part of the reason for that is that you're not just dealing with one thought. You are dealing with layers. What happened? what it meant to you, what your body learned, what your soul concluded, what got repeated, what you started agreeing with. And that is why this goes deeper than just positive thinking. A woman can know scripture and still live from fear. A woman can love Jesus and still react from rejection. A woman can be gifted, called, sincere, and deeply committed to God and still carry an internal narrative that says, I am not enough. I'm not enough. So research on childhood adversity and self-schemas support this. And what do I mean by self-schema? So you're going to be smart listening to my podcast. A self-schema is just, it's the way that you see your life. It's how you view the world. Painful or unstable experiences in childhood and adolescence can shape really strong beliefs about yourself, relationships, and the world. And those beliefs can become so familiar that they stop sounding like beliefs and start sounding like reality. Let's put some language to this. When there is divorce, emotional inconsistency, criticism, addiction, chaos, or being unseen, a child is not just having experiences. A child is making meaning from what they're seeing and feeling around them. A child's heart is asking questions like, what is going on? Am I safe? Am I wanted? Did I do something wrong? Do I matter here? What do I need to be to survive this? What do I need to stop being so I don't make it worse? And because children are children, they often do not come to the conclusion that the adults around me are the problem. They're the immature, unstable, emotionally unavailable, dysregulated, or broken. They don't see that. They often conclude something about themselves. I'm too much. I'm not worth staying for. I need to be good. I need to get smaller. I need to perform. I need to read the room. I need to make people okay. I do not get to have needs. I better not feel too much. I need to hold it together because nobody else is. That is not weakness. That is adaptation. Your mind and body did what they were designed to do. They adapted. But here's the problem. What helps you survive in one season can quietly start becoming the lens through which of the rest of your whole life is seen. And then 20 years later, you're still reacting to situations as if that old conclusion is still the truth. And this is where I want to go deeper. A lot of us have called things personality that are actually protection. We say things like this. I'm just a people pleaser. I'm just independent. I'm just intense. I'm just the strong one. I'm just not emotionally available. I'm just wired this way. I'm just cautious. I'm just sensitive. And maybe some of those are your temperament, but some of it is survival. Some of it is the role that you took on to function in an environment that did not feel safe, stable, warm, or predictable. You became the fixer because chaos taught you that somebody had to keep things from falling apart. You became the peacemaker because conflict felt threatening. You became the achiever because praise felt safer than vulnerability. You became invisible because being seen felt risky. You became hyper aware because emotional inconsistency trained you to scan for danger. You became over responsible because addiction or dysfunction taught you that somebody had to carry the weight. And again, the issue is not that those patterns came from nowhere. The issue is that those patterns start talking to you about who you are. And eventually the pattern became an identity, but not your true identity, but a functioning identity, a practiced identity, a familiar identity, a fear-based identity. And honestly, this is one of the reasons that I really, really appreciate the work of Jamie Winship and his wife, Donna. If you've never heard of them, they talk a lot about identity in a way that just makes things make sense. They break it down like this. So much of the way that we're living is actually coming from fear fear-based beliefs that we picked up along the way, beliefs that don't even really belong to us, but we've just been agreeing with for so long that they now feel true. And what they teach is that real transformation doesn't start with behavior. It starts with identity. Because when you begin to recognize, wait, this thought, this reaction, this way I see myself, this might not actually be truth. And that's when things start to change. That's when you can begin exchanging those fear-based, lie-shaped patterns for what is actually true. And that is exactly what I want you to hear today. Some of what you've been calling me may actually be fear with a very long history. Some of what you've been calling just how I am may actually just be an old agreement. And just because it is familiar does not mean it's true. Now let's bring this into the body, soul, and spirit framework, because this is where things start to get a little clearer. Your body keeps score in ways that you might not even realize. So you might walk into a conversation and your chest gets tight. You get a text from someone and your stomach drops. Someone sounds disappointed and your shoulders tense. You feel misunderstood and your jaw clenches. You start thinking someone is upset with you and suddenly you can't settle down. This is not you being dramatic. Your body may be reacting to an identity it thinks is true. If your body has learned, I am unsafe when people pull away, or I have to get this right to stay connected, then your nervous system is going to react long before you have a nice, calm Bible study moment. Then there's your soul, which is your mind, your will, your emotions, your personality. This is where the internal narrative gets repeated. That thought, I'm not enough, comes with the emotion of shame, anxiety, sadness, fear, and the actions from that are overworking, hiding, striving, proving, or shutting down. And the result is you now have more evidence that seems to confirm the original thought. That loop is real, and it's entrenched in these mental stories that you carry around about yourself. And they can reinforce the way people interpret new events, especially when those schemas formed out of neglect, criticism, or instability. And then there's your spirit. And this is where the tension gets intense for Christian women, because in your spirit, you know truth. You know God is good. You know His word is true. You know Jesus saves. You know your worth is not supposed to come from people. You know that you are not meant to live defeated, and yet your soul is very loud, and your body is reacting. Your history is talking. And so you end up with this awful tension of, I know what is true, but I don't feel rooted in it. That doesn't mean that your faith is fake. It means truth has to move from being something you can quote to something you actually agree with in the places where fear used to run the show. And I want to say this very plainly. The biggest problem for many Christian women is not ignorance. It's agreement. It's not that you haven't heard what God says. It's that somewhere deep down, you are still agreeing with something else. You are agreeing with criticism. You are agreeing with rejection. You're agreeing with abandonment. You're agreeing with that shame, with performance, with fear, with a role that you had to play, with a wounded interpretation of your life. And because you are agreeing with it, you are living from it. That is why you can know a verse and still panic. That is why you can pray and still spiral. That is why you can tell your friend the truth all day long and still struggle to apply it to yourself. Because the question isn't only, what do I believe? The question is, what identity am I agreeing with right now? That is where the work is. Not in pretending you're fine, not in shaming yourself for struggling, not in trying to become a different person overnight, but in becoming honest about the agreements that you have made. So we have a foundational lie. I am not enough. This isn't just a sentence. It's actually a lens. It can sound like this: I need to do more. I should be further along. Why can't I get it together? Everybody else handles this way better than I do. I'm too emotional. I'm too needy. I'm too broken. I'm behind. I'm not spiritual enough. I'm not disciplined enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not calm enough. I'm not mature enough. I'm not chosen enough. I'm not wanted enough. And then sometimes it swings the other way and becomes, I am too much. I'm too sensitive. I'm too intense. I'm too needy. I'm too loud. I'm too complicated, too messy, too hard to love. But too much and not enough are actually cousins. They often come from the same fear. There is something foundationally wrong with me. That is why surface encouragement isn't enough. If a woman has spent years interpreting life through, I am not enough, she's not going to be changed by one cute little reminder on her wall. She needs clarity. She needs to recognize that tape. She needs to hear that this conclusion may have actually been formed in pain and then reinforced in relationships and then embodied in patterns, but it's still not the truth. Now, let's talk about truth, but not in some lighthearted way, not some flimsy way. True identity is not ego. It is not pretending you have no wounds. It is not denying your history. It is not slapping a verse over your pain and acting like you're done. It's not performance platform, personality, or productivity. True identity is what God says is true, whether your emotions are cooperating yet or not. True identity is given, not earned. It is revealed, not invented. It is received, not performed. And yes, growth matters. Obedience matters. Maturity matters. Healing matters. But those things are expressions of identity. They're not the source of identity. And this is why I love this phrase. Growth is learning to live as who you already are. Because so many women are out here trying to become someone instead of coming into agreement with who God already says they are. They're trying to earn peace, earn that steadiness, earn their worth, belonging, approval, earn their spiritual confidence. You cannot earn what was meant to be received. Now, receiving it doesn't mean it instantly feels natural. This is where repetition, renewal, and practice comes in. So if you're listening today and you're thinking, I know this in my head, but I don't feel this yet, that does not mean that you're failing. It means there's still a gap between what your spirit knows and what your soul and body have been practicing. And the good news is that gap can close. And I want to be careful here because I don't want women to hear this. Just ignore your story. I don't want you to hear that. I want you to hear that your story matters. What happened in your life matters. What was missing matters. What was said, it matters. What was modeled matters. What you had to carry matters. But your story is not your source, and your pain doesn't get final say over your identity. Just because you were criticized doesn't mean that you are deficient. Just because someone left doesn't mean that you're unworthy. Just because you felt unseen doesn't mean that you're insignificant. Just because life was chaotic doesn't mean that you are destined to live disoriented. Just because fear trained you doesn't mean fear gets to disciple you forever. You can tell the truth about what shaped you without handing it authority to define you. And that is a big difference. That is a shift from victimhood, out of victimhood, into your true calling and identity. And I think that is where a lot of hope starts to come in. Because if your whole identity is locked to your history, then you feel stuck. But if some of what has defined you is actually a practiced agreement, then with God's help, that agreement can change. So let me make this simple and usable because this has been super heavy, okay? This is a lot. I know this is a lot. I have lived so much of this, and that's how I know this is a lot. And you might need to rehear this. But I want to give you some simple and usable things to help you shift out of this. The next time that you feel yourself getting hijacked, instead of immediately asking, "What is wrong with me?" I want you to ask, what identity am I agreeing with right now? Am I agreeing with the I am not enough? Am I agreeing with I have to perform? Am I agreeing with I don't matter? Am I agreeing with I have to fix this to be okay? Am I agreeing with I am too much? Am I agreeing with if I am not useful, I'm not valuable? Name it and then ask, where did I learn this? Not so you can stay stuck in analysis forever, okay? You don't want to stay there either, but you need to know where it came from. It isn't so that you can blame everybody, but so you can recognize that maybe this did not begin as truth. Maybe it began as adaptation. And then ask. This is super important. You can't stop there in that analysis. You have to go to the next step. And you have to say, God, what is true here? Not what is flattering, not what sounds nice, but what is true. And then you go find one piece of truth in the word, not 50 pieces of truth, just one. God is love. There is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. One truth. And then ask, if that were true, what would agreement look like in one action today? Maybe agreement looks like resting instead of proving, speaking honestly instead of shutting down, not over-explaining. Maybe it looks like saying no. Maybe it looks like letting your shoulders drop. Maybe it looks like not fixing someone else's feelings. Maybe it looks like crying and not calling yourself weak. Maybe it looks like following through on one small thing because you are not powerless. This is where truth begins to move from concept to embodiment. You let your body come under truth. You let your soul come under truth. You let your choices come under truth. And yes, that will take time, but it is doable. And I want to say something directly to the woman listening who is tired. You are tired of circling that same mountain. You are tired of being triggered by the same things. You're tired of hearing truth and not knowing how to hold on to it. You're tired of feeling like you should be further along, feeling unstable, feeling like your past keeps introducing yourself into your present. Listen to me. You are not hopeless. You are not too far gone. You are not too much to heal. You are not disqualified because you have patterns. You are not fake because you struggle. You're not destined to stay in agreement with every lie you learned in pain. Hard times may have shaped how you see yourself, but they don't get to decide who you are. Other people may have treated you as if you were too much or not enough, but that doesn't make it true. Your own mind may have repeated those messages for years. That still doesn't make them true. Truth is not determined by repetition. Truth is determined by God. And with God's help, it is possible to identify your true self, interrupt false agreement, and begin living from truth. You're not going to do it perfectly, but you're going to really do it. And as Christians, we do have work to do. We have a calling to live. We're not meant to stay collapsed under what Jesus came to free us from. The New Testament repeatedly calls to believers to renewal, truth, freedom, transformed thinking, rather than captivity to old patterns. So no, I'm not interested in leaving women with inspiration and no path. I want you to have a path. So here's your plan for this week. Number 1, notice the tape going in your head over and over. Pay attention to the sentence underneath the sentence. Go one layer. Get curious. I don't want you to say, I'm so stressed. I want you to say, what is the meaning under that? Are you feeling, I'm failing? I'm not enough. I'm alone. I have to do this perfectly. I can't trust myself. There's no room for me to need. Number 2, name the identity you are living from in that moment. Are you the invisible one? Are you the performer, the fixer, the peacemaker, the strong one, the rejected one, the disappointed one, the overwhelmed one, the never enough one? And then number 3, ask God what is true. And this requires us to slow down and get quiet. Super, super hard, but it is imperative. This is imperative. You need to open the word and you need to invite Jesus into your space, right where you are, mess and all. We don't have to be gussied up for Jesus. And you're not doing this as a religious exercise. You're doing it as a real exchange. You are exchanging that old identity for the truth that he has just for you. And then number 4, choose one act of agreement. Just one, not 10, not 3, but 1. Let your body come with you. Super important. And I'm so glad that we're seeing more and more people talk about how our bodies receive and express identity and all of this stuff that we feel. It's very real. You need to breathe. You need to unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, sit down, step outside, hand it to God physically, not just mentally, because this work is not only spiritual in theory, it is lived in a body, processed in a soul, and anchored in the spirit. So this has been rather long, I realized, but I had a lot to say and I wanted to go a little deeper than normal. And as we wrap up today, I just want you to sit with this for a second. You are not crazy for feeling the way you've been feeling, okay? Tell yourself that. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy for feeling the way that I've been feeling. You are not weak because you've had patterns. Say that with me. I am not weak because I've had patterns. You are not stuck the way it might feel right now. I want you to say that. I am not stuck in the way I feel right now. You've been living from something that made sense at one point, but that doesn't mean it's where you have to stay. And the fact that you're even aware of it now, that matters way more than you're even thinking, because awareness is where change actually begins. It's not perfection, not having it all figured out, just awareness. So this week, don't try to overhaul your whole life. Don't do it. You're just going to set yourself up for failure. It's not possible. Just start noticing. Start catching the thought underneath the thought. Start asking yourself, what am I agreeing with right now? And then gently, intentionally, you can't stay there. Okay, you can't stay in the negative thought, all right? You have to bring truth into that space. You have to shed the light of Christ into that space, but one moment at a time. And that's where we get hung up. We think we have to do it all the time with everything, and you don't. It's one moment at a time. You do not have to do this perfectly. You just have to start. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, this is me. I feel this. I see this, but I don't even know where to begin. I want to invite you over to my website, lhplifecoach.com. I've got simple resources over there that can help you start walking this out. It's nothing overwhelming, nothing complicated, just practical tools to help you slow down, process what's going on in your mind, and begin coming into agreement with truth in a real everyday way. Because this work, it's not meant to stay in your head. It is meant to show up in your life. Okay, friend, you are doing better than you think. You're more aware than you've been, and you're not as stuck as it feels. And you are still in the making. Thanks for joining me this week. Share your feelings with me. Remember, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and all the places. I want to hear from you. I want to know, did this resonate with you? Where are you stuck? Let's just have a conversation. God loves you, friend. He loves you so much. And his intention is not for you to be stuck. His intention is for you to live out your calling and purpose so that you can share in his glory. All right, have a great week, and I will talk with you next week.